All right there, Econ friends, welcome back to video 3. In our last video, we dissected the profit maximization decisions in an MC firm, right? We know the steps, MR equals MC rule to find Q, take it up to the demand curve to find price, find the ATC curve, compare. You may have profits, you may have losses, and then we took it the next step further to analyze the short run to long run dynamic. And we learned that in the MC structure, because of low barriers to entry, there's going to be entry in response to profits, exit in response to losses, and this will leave us at a long run equilibrium where P equals ATC. So now you know how to make the decisions for profit maximizing for MC. We now move to the third big thing that we talk about in these market structure discussions. And in this case specifically, we ask the question, how does monopolistic competition compare to perfect competition in terms of business practice, and really importantly, in terms of economic efficiency and social welfare? You recall that when we had done our perfect competition section, we learned that perfect competition hit all the tests, right? Hit all the marks, achieved all the definitions of economic efficiency. The dead weight loss question and total surplus question, the allocative efficiency question, the productive efficiency question. So we know that the PC firm, right? The PC industry is socially efficient. In this discussion, we're going to compare monopolistic competition to perfect competition. Okay, so let's talk about it. The first thing to bear in mind is that there are definitely some similarities between the two models. Okay, so when you look at business practice, there are some similarities between PC and MC. What are some of those similarities? Well, number one, again, because of low barriers to entry, both perfect competition and monopolistic competition are going to have an extremely strong incentive to look out for, identify, and serve the interests of consumers. Remember that both of these industries have really intense competition, and therefore the players in these industries are going to have extremely strong incentives to serve the interests of consumers. Another similarity is that in both models, long-run economic profits are zero. And this is because of the low barriers to entry and the fact that they're going to end up at P equals ATC. In addition, another similarity between these two market structures is that entrepreneurs in both models, so whether you're an entrepreneur in the perfectly competitive area or an entrepreneur running a firm in the monopolistically competitive arena, in both of these structures, entrepreneurs are going to face pressure to manage their businesses and operate their businesses efficiently. And this is critical because you need to run your business efficiently in order to keep your costs low. And we know that if you don't keep your costs low, you're going to go bankrupt eventually. You're going to get hurt eventually. The market will ultimately punish you eventually. Okay? This implies that in both PC and MC, in both structures, entrepreneurs are going to always face motivation, always face incentive, always face pressure to innovate and to develop new cost-reducing procedures. Critical to understand that there is tremendous pressure in these structures on entrepreneurs to innovate and to develop. Or if they don't innovate and develop it, but someone else does, to adopt new cost-reducing procedures and techniques, because lower costs ultimately in the short run increase profits. But notice the little subtle benefit here. Lower costs also imply more efficient use of scarce resources, which is a good thing, okay? So those are some similarities in the two models. There's also critically differences. The primary difference, as you know, is that the demand curve facing the firms in each structure are different. With the PC demand curve being perfectly elastic and horizontal, and the monopolistic competitors demand curve being downward sloping because that market power, okay? As a result of this, and this is a critical distinction, monopolistically competitive firms do not achieve either allocative efficiency or productive efficiency. In other words, in our big test of efficiency, the allocative question and the productive question, the MC firm fails both. They're 0 for 2. In other words, my friends, much like Monopoly, MC firms are going to charge higher prices and produce lower output than would occur under perfect competition. Okay, we can see the summary right here. You see in panel A, perfect competition, and we see the long run equilibrium, and we know that at this magic point right there, P equals MC, P equals minimum ATC, productive efficiency, check, allocative, check, total surplus is maximized, check, no dead weight loss, efficient. But if we jump over here to panel B and we look at monopolistic competition, we see that's not the case. In comparison, let me bring this back here. In comparison to PC, you see very obviously that number one, the price that the MC firm charges is higher than minimum. Sorry, pardon me, let me go backwards. My mistake. That the price that the MC charges is higher than the marginal cost. Price is greater than marginal cost. Condition 1 violated. We also know that the second condition was setting a price equal to minimum ATC. Well, minimum ATC is right there. The price is right there. So we also see that price is greater than minimum ATC. Another condition violated, 0 for 2. And in fact, if you wanted to take it a step further, let's clean this a little bit, we can see that the minimum ATC quantity is right here. This is the amount that the PC would produce, right? This is the amount that perfect competition would produce. The monopolistic competitor produces right there. So they underproduce. And notice that this leads, as you would predict, let's go to a different color here for contrast, to this deadly triangle that we know as dead weight loss. So to sum it all up, when you compare PC, which is totally efficient, with MC, you see that MC fails all 3 tests of economic efficiency. They charge prices that are too high, they underproduce, they generate dead weight loss, they violate the conditions of both productive and allocative efficiency, okay? Really quickly, before we move on, I want to give you a couple of business terms. In business, we use the term markup to represent the difference between price and marginal cost. So in PC, there's no markup because price equals marginal cost. But we see right here in monopolistic competition that the price is way up here and the marginal cost is way down here. Price is greater than marginal cost. So we would say that the MC firm engages in markup. Another business term is the term excess capacity. Excess capacity refers to the difference between the actual output that a firm produces and the output level that would minimize ATC. Okay, that's known as excess capacity. You can see it right here. Excess capacity here is the difference between, let me make this a bit bigger for you here. Excess capacity is the difference between the quantity of output that would minimize ATC and the actual output quantity. Notice again that the perfectly competitive firm, which is efficient, it has no excess capacity because it produces at the minimum ATC. But as you see here, monopolistic competition engages, demonstrates excess capacity. Okay, so in terms of business practice, there's some similarities. There's also some differences. In terms of economic efficiency, totally different. Finally, and I'll leave you with this thought, what does this mean? Well, some economists argue that monopolistic competition is bad because of the inefficiencies that we discussed a minute ago. But I wanted to get you thinking about this a little bit differently. I want you to broaden your thinking about the efficiency of this structure. Clearly, from a straight economic social welfare vantage point of productive and allocative and dead weight loss, MC is not good. But some people argue, and I would agree with them, although I'm not going to put that on you, that the higher prices that are charged under monopolistic competition, some people say that these indicate inefficiency. But other people would argue, and I would argue, that these higher prices may simply reflect the fact that in the MC structure, there's a lot more variety. There's product differentiation. And maybe the higher prices that the MC firms charge ultimately reflects the fact that it's a lot more expensive to produce different types of products. It's more expensive, it's more costly to have product differentiation. So maybe the higher prices that we see in monopolistic competition, they're a byproduct of product differentiation. And if that's the case, we have to rethink things a little bit. Because at the end of the day, most people would argue that product differentiation is a good thing, that consumers like variety, that consumers like options, that consumers like the competitive process that lets them choose between rival offerings that have differentiation. In fact, the evidence suggests very clearly that consumers seem happy with variety. So maybe we have to consider that when it comes to MC, it's not as simple as straight economic efficiency, that maybe some mitigating factors like consumer satisfaction have to tie into our evaluation. Okay? The final thing I'll leave you with is that in terms of the comparison, the two structures differ in one other regard, and that is they differ with regard to advertising, which perfect competition does not engage in, but which monopolistic competition engages in heavily: advertising. I'll leave you with that now, and advertising will be the focus of our next and final video in this series. My friends, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.